Welcome to Sports Weekly. I'm Randy Higgins, and we're filling in this week. Me and Seth Hagen, my partner tonight, we're filling in this week on the show, and we're going to talk basketball. We're going to talk a little bit of football, a little bit of the NFL Combine, a little bit of everything, Seth.
A little bit of everything. We kind of got tossed into this here at the last second, so we're just going to kind of freestyle it for you guys and hope you like it. But let's jump into the NCAA basketball, because we're just a couple of games away from the season completely being done in college.
And March Madness is right around the corner. It's March already, so
It's just about.
a team that everybody here in this area is probably wondering about, Alabama. Can they get into the NCAA tournament? About a week ago, they had won a couple of games in a row, and everybody said, oh yeah, they're getting ready to get on a roll, and then things fell apart.
Yeah.
And they've got some work to do if they want to get into this tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. We were looking at it earlier. We've seen conflicting reports about their top 25 record. Some people say they're 4-3. Other people say they're 1-5. It really kind of depends on who you talk to and which rankings you go with, whether the AP or the USA Today ESPN poll. But one thing we do know, the previous 4 seasons, they were 0-18 against top 25 ranked teams, and at least this season they've pulled out a couple of nice wins. But like you said, they lost that big game to Kentucky. They lost Auburn. A couple of games that you really cannot lose. So now they really got their back against the wall. They have to win out and get at least to the SEC tournament semifinals to even be considered to be in that tournament.
And their RPI rank is 58, and that's not bad, but there's 68 teams that are going to be in this tournament, with the 4 that play in, or the 2 that play in out of the 4.
Yep.
So 58, and they don't necessarily go straight off into RPI, but that kind of puts you on the bubble, and that's where they're at right now. But when you look at the schedule, there's really, Texas A&M was ranked 21. They beat them at home, but other than that, you really have to scrounge for the big wins. They did beat Notre Dame. That's a good team.
Yep.
But they're at a point now where they're going to need to win these last 2 games, and they're probably, and we had talked about this before the show, they're probably going to need to maybe even get to the championship of the SEC tournament. If not, at least have a good showing in the semifinal.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough. Right now, the hill that they have to climb is pretty big. They've got Ole Miss, Florida, LSU, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky, and now Texas A&M above them in the rankings. Texas A&M taking the #1 spot in the SEC just in the last 48 hours, with Kentucky losing a couple of close games, including the one to Texas A&M. So right now, they're one of 4 teams in the SEC currently locked at 8-8 in the record. So, I mean, your margin for error is none at this point. You have to win. You have to win right now, and you got to get on a roll. And honestly, it's going to come down to whether Reno Obasanjo is going to be able to step up for this team. Avery Johnson's got them playing better overall, but when it comes to March, you got to have a lockdown, crunch time score, and Obasanjo is that guy.
And the one team you mentioned, you called them out, was Vanderbilt. That might be the team that kind of gets that 4th spot. They've got a little bit better RPI than Alabama, and right now they're playing pretty good basketball, and you got to wonder, would the committee even be willing to look beyond 4 teams in the SEC? And if Vanderbilt, if they can pull off a win at home against Tennessee, then they go on the road against A&M. If they win those 2 and then win a game or 2 in the SEC tournament, is that going to push Alabama out the door if Alabama only wins a game or 2 in the tournament?
Yeah, because at this point, Alabama does not really control its own destiny. If the teams above it play just as well as they do, sorry. Like, the door's going to close, and it's not going to be due to any fault of their own, other than the fact that they lost some games in SEC play that you just can't lose. You can't lose to Mississippi State at home. You just cannot do that. It's an unforgiven sin, especially when you're talking about February basketball.
And another team that, I think had high expectations in the SEC was LSU.
Yes.
And this team has not lived up to it at all, and they have one of the best players, well, probably the best player in the SEC, one of the top in the country. Yeah, that seems to be hit. So.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is incredible. He's leading his team in points, rebounds, steals, and assists. That doesn't happen very often unless your name is Magic Johnson. So I really feel for the kid, and he's had to deal with some academic issues. He's had a lingering injury since mid-season. So, and he's really carrying the weight of this entire team. The front court of LSU is not very impressive. As far as the back court, you only really have a couple of decent contributors in Simmons and Quarterman. So, past that, you really don't have any go-to scorers, and that kills you in the SEC tournament when you need guys to step up late in the game and win games for you. I'm not going to say it's out of reach, but they're in the same situation as Alabama is. They have to win, and they have to win now, and you have no more margin for error.
But can they get in without getting in by winning the tournament? I mean, obviously, if you win the tournament, you're in.
It's going to be tough.
But
I think.
Can they get to the championship? Can either one? Can Alabama? Let's say Alabama were to drop these last two games, but got to the championship game. Can they get in? Same with LSU.
If you get to the championship game, you're going to get consideration. If you win the championship game, then there is no debate. But I don't know, man. I think if they lost these next two games, and even if you get to the SEC championship, if you have 10 league losses, there's no way. There's no way, man. And LSU, I mean, they're up against the wall. But I could see, and this is weird, and maybe it's not fair, but if you get the number one team in the country and a potential number one draft pick, that means ranking. That means ratings.
Ratings.
And so, if you get to that to the semifinals of the SEC, you're kind of forcing some people's hands, and you might see LSU sneak in there with like a 12 or 13 seed.
Yeah, and I don't doubt the committee would probably love to have LSU if they were playing better. They would love to have them in the tournament because of what you just said.
Certainly.
But they've lost 4 of their last 5 ball games.
Yeah,
so
they're making it very difficult for people to pick them right now.
Or they lost 3 of their last 4 ball games. So
if Simmons goes out, you know that this team is not capable of carrying the load without him.
And they do get to go on the road at Kentucky for the last game of the season. Now, if somehow
people do not win in Kentucky, man.
No, they typically don't. But if they could pull that off, and they pull off the win against Missouri on Tuesday,
which is a must-win. Missouri is at the bottom of the conference.
Yes, they have to win that. But then they went on the road at Kentucky, and they get to that championship game. They don't have to win it, but if they got to that championship game...
Oh, I think they're in. With a win at Kentucky, that is a massive win. Even with Kentucky, kind of losing here in the last little bit, they're still a very good, very talented team. And if you win in Big Blue, in the bluegrass country, you have to respect that. That is a hostile environment.
So basically, I think what we've come to a conclusion here is that we're very confident 3 teams are getting in.
Yeah.
And that's A&M, Kentucky, and South Carolina.
But past that, you need a very good postseason showing in Nashville.
Past that, a lot of things have to happen, but there could potentially be 5 teams. But things would have to really...
Ooh, yeah. It'd have to be a very nice domino effect.
Yeah, and I think the likelihood of 4 is... I think that's a good possibility. 5 is a long shot. 5 is at least a half-court shot, maybe a full-court shot.
Yeah, I mean, when it gets to basketball, there's just so many better basketball conferences. You're talking about the Atlantic 10 gets 3 or 4 teams in. Cornell gets in from crazy conferences. George Mason gets in and makes runs. There's just so much more parity. And so... When you get to conferences like the SEC, there's really not much more room unless everybody is playing well and everybody is ranked. And we're just not in a situation anymore where you got Billy Donovan getting in the tournament all the time and Kentucky getting in all the time. It's slim pickings at the top.
So, like we said, we think 3 teams for sure. What about Conference USA? I know me and you both, we love to watch UAB play basketball. Sure. We've covered some of those games. But that's probably a conference that's just going to have to be one to get in.
Yeah, and right now, UAB leads the entire conference by 3 games. But here's the problem. The second-place team already has 5 conference losses. It's not a very strong conference this year, certainly not as strong as it was last year when UAB won and then went on to beat Iowa State for that big 3-14 upset. If UAB can make it all the way to the championship, I think that they get in based on the fact that they've been fantastic this season. And this would not happen without last year's showing. If they didn't prove last year that they could be a tournament team and that they're dangerous, additionally, they bring back every starter from last year's championship team, I think they could get in losing in the conference championship. But they got to get there. Unfortunately, there's no margin for error for them as well. And it's because of what conference they play in.
But, you know, if you believe that, then basically you're saying they can lose, and Conference USA would have 2 teams in. The only problem I see with that is man, you're looking at, there's no one else that has any kind of credentials. I mean, that's why I just feel like the winner is going to be the one in. Everybody
the only
else.
one.
We saw this a couple of years ago with Louisiana Tech. They had a great year going. I think they had only lost 4 or 5, kind of like UAB now, and they lost in the conference tournament, and they were left out
UAB.
by the committee. Yeah, and they were left out by the committee.
Well, so, I mean, that's certainly a precedent in that case. Blazers fans, you better show up in mass to the Conference USA tournament here in a couple weeks. It's going to be in Birmingham. I'll hopefully be in the house for that because I definitely want to see some good basketball.
Yeah, it should be exciting. And, you know, we've seen UAB. We both have watched them play in person many times. Yeah. And, you know, they have the potential to get on these streaks where they get really, really hot. Yep. The problem we've seen is that they cool off somewhere in the middle of the game, it seems like, and then they have to fight just to pull off a win sometimes. If they could play a complete game from start to finish, I think they could play with almost, and I say almost, any team out there.
Yeah, when you look at them, they got great shot blocking, great rebounding, great three-point shooting. Robert Brown is a go-to guy in terms of scoring. Nick Norton is a great point guard that doesn't turn the ball over and gets the ball to his team. He's a great passer. And so, yeah, they have the potential to get there, but at the same time, you have to look at it. And several times at home, they've played with teams that they shouldn't be playing around with. This past Saturday, I want to say, or Sunday, they were playing against one of the bottom teams in the conference who had beaten them earlier this year. And they had to win that game basically just to keep themselves in the voters' mind's eye.
Yeah, and they last year they knocked off a 3 seed. Right now they're being projected as a 14 seed by some of the bracketologies out there. Golly. And so who knows? Maybe it happens again.
Can't lose it all, can you?
Well, we've got to take a break. We're at Moe's Original Barbecue here in Coleman. We'll be right back with more Sports Weekly.
Moe's Original Barbecue, where you'll find award-winning Bama-style pulled pork, racks of ribs, and chicken smoked fresh daily over hardwood, served with 2 unique sauces, plus 8 to 10 traditional sides and tasty desserts. Moe's opens daily at 11 a.m., serving lunch and dinner until it's all gone. There's also a full premium bar with plenty of TVs for sports viewing and live music. Moe's Original Barbecue offers large party takeout orders, catering, and delivery. Moe's Barbecue, a unique all things Southern barbecue experience.
At Premier Bank, you have a financial partner you can depend on. Hi, I'm Jay Mullins, president of Premier Bank, with some exciting news about our financial strength and performance. For the 6th consecutive year, our bank has been rated 5 stars by Bauer Financial, an independent firm that has been analyzing and reporting on the financial condition of the nation's banking industry since 1983. This prestigious rating means that we are one of the strongest banks in the nation, and a safe and sound bank you can depend on.
The 2016 Fiat 500X has arrived, and it's ready to drive at Fiat of Huntsville. This perfectly bold crossover is impressively equipped with a turbocharged engine, seating for 5, available all-wheel drive, and just $249 a month or $4,000 off. Plus, you get customizable amenities like 5 different trim levels to perfectly match your style. Come experience the all-new Fiat 500X at Fiat of Huntsville or online at fiatusaofhuntsville.com, a Frank Williams dealership.
Welcome back to Sports Weekly. I'm Randy Higgins, and along with Seth Hagen, we're filling in this week, and we hope you're enjoying the show. We're here at Moe's Original Barbecue in Coleman. And if you haven't been down here, some wonderful food. I had an incredible turkey with some barbecue on it, barbecue sauce, white sauce.
Yeah.
I had fried green tomatoes.
I found out what a bushwhacker was. Let me tell you. Find you one of those.
Okay.
Telling you.
We'll just leave it at that. Huh? There's one over here. We were talking basketball before the break. We were talking about Alabama, UAB, but let's look at the national picture. And there's so much parity in the NCAA basketball, and you mentioned that. Mm-hmm. Having said that, though, who do you think are two teams that should likely be in the Final Four? And I know that's a tough question.
Yeah.
It
is very tough, but right now I believe that the Big 12 has been really, besides the ACC, has been the class of college basketball this year. Oklahoma and Kansas have had classic games, including that I think double or triple overtime game just a month and a half ago. They've got some of the best players in the league. They've been ranked in the top 10 basically all year. So you got to look at those teams. I would never, even with their poor showing of late, I would never count out a Kentucky team. Before these last couple of losses, this team really reminded me a lot of that 7-seed Julius Randle Kentucky team a couple of years ago that made the championship game and really put a scare in UConn. So I would never count them out. That talent is just too much to ignore. And then as you go around the country, North Carolina is a team that you certainly have to look at. Not a lot of three-point range, but as far as a front court and how deep they are down low in the paint, they're without peer, really. So you look at them. Duke is also very tricky. You have to look at Virginia as well. They're a team that a lot of people were looking at to make the Final Four last year and disappointed. They may have, that monkey on their back they're trying to get off of. So when you look at that and everybody else around the country, it's really very thin in the Pac-12. Perhaps Arizona could make a run, but I really don't see it.
Yeah, I think Arizona, when you look at them on the road, they seem to really, there's a big difference when you look at their scoring on the road as opposed to home. When they're at home, they're lights out. They're scoring 85, 90 points a game, no problem. Yeah. They get on the road, they're scoring in the 70s.
Yeah, and that makes you really nervous sending them into these,
and we've seen
neutral sites.
Yeah, and we've seen them in the past not do so well when it comes to the NCAA tournament. We've seen them get ousted in the first round and the second round. Yeah. I'll tell you a team that I really like, and I like the way they're playing right now, and they had a good, impressive showing again yesterday. Michigan State is playing really well right now.
Yes.
And
as a rule of thumb, you really can't count out Izzo or Krzyzewski.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
No matter who they have, it doesn't really matter.
Your coach is Izzo.
It's incredible, man.
You always have that chance as the season goes for your team to continually get better as the season goes on. And you're going to have that chance to get yourself in a position to be in the Final Four. And I just think Michigan State's playing is about as good as anybody in the country right now.
Yeah, they're insane. They've actually moved up to number 2 in the country overall. So you're looking at Kansas, Michigan State, Villanova, Virginia. Xavier is a very good team, a very dangerous team. Miami has come out of nowhere in the ACC, and they're second place right now. Yeah, so it's insane. Utah is playing very good basketball. In just a week's time, they moved up from 22 to 12, and they blew the socks off Arizona State, who was really going the opposite direction, but they were up 40-8 at the half.
Wow.
It was an incredible showing, and so look out for the Utes. Yeah. The Utes play some good basketball, and unfortunately Louisville will not be in the tournament this year because of the allegations with the team. I hate that for them because, they're almost a top 10 team, and they had a couple of transfers come in and play this year as seniors, and due to circumstances beyond their control, they're not even going to get to play in the postseason at all, not even the ACC tournament as seniors.
One of the teams you mentioned is playing tonight, North Carolina, as we see it over there in North Carolina.
Beating
Syracuse. Kansas is playing Texas later on. Number 1 versus number 25. Texas is a good basketball team. That should be an
Texas
exciting game.
could sneak in there to the tournament for sure.
I'll tell you, I'll throw out my Final Four, and some
Okay.
people say, well, that was too easy to pick because yeah, they're probably all going to be number one seeds, but I just like the way they're all playing. I like Kansas State to be one of them.
Really?
I like Michigan State. I also like Oklahoma, and I'm gonna go out there on a limb. I'm gonna say Miami out of the ACC.
Three Big 12 teams though, that would be a record.
No, I mean, Michigan State is Big Ten. So I said Kansas and Oklahoma. That's your Big 12. Michigan State.
I thought you said Kansas State at the beginning.
No.
Okay.
Kansas.
See,
Kansas.
that threw me off.
I've got two Big 12, one Big 10, and then I'm going to the ACC with Miami.
Well, I like it.
And it's way early to do that, but I think about it a lot because I got to tell you, I think college basketball tournament time to me is every bit as exciting as the bowl season. Actually, for me, I like it a little bit more.
Yeah, so I like the Utes as a dark horse. Who do you think is out there in the maybe 15 to 30 range that could possibly make a run?
I don't know, and people say, well, you're being a homer, but I just want to believe that maybe UAB could get on a run.
I would love it.
I mean, I just think it would be so exciting, and we'll just have to see. I don't know. I've thought about it, but I'm not sure who that would be. Kentucky, they're so well coached, and that they can get strong as the tournament goes around. That's probably more of a likely scenario is picking somebody like them. But I'd love to see UAB somehow get on some kind of run and get in the tournament.
In this year of college basketball, I think anything is possible, my man. I think anybody could make a run. There's no guarantee for any team at the top. I want to say, I heard something the other day, it was something like 25 to 30 teams have played in the top 10 this year, have been ranked in the top 10. So this whole year has been a merry-go-round. People get thrown off, they hop back on. Anything could happen.
Yeah, and to me, that's what's so great about college basketball. It's not like with the NCAA football. Usually you have a number one team. They may get knocked off at some point, and then somebody else takes over number one, and then that's usually it until the bowl committee picks, who's going to be in that top four. Whereas in basketball, man, that number one ranking, it changes constantly.
Week to week.
Yeah, the number one, number two, it's always changing. And so to me, it just makes it so exciting. So
I can't wait. It's going to be great basketball, but I have a feeling that the 10 to 15 brackets I fill up will just burn almost instantly.
Well, we're here in March. It's just now March. We've been talking about March Madness coming up. The other thing that's going on right now, though, is the NFL combines. We got the draft coming up here in a few weeks, about 4 or 5 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
So right now, everybody trying to make it into the draft is at the combine. Alabama's got several players there. Auburn has plenty as well, and one player from Auburn that we talked about earlier today when we were talking, the defensive back Jonathan Jones has had an outstanding showing so far at the combine.
Yeah, he started basically in Mobile playing at the Senior Bowl, and he was getting rave reviews there for his speed, and today basically put the exclamation point on it. Ran a 4.28, the fastest 40 of all defensive backs, and I think possibly the combine at this point, there may have been one person who topped him overall, but he is lightning fast, and I've watched him the last couple of years. He really broke onto the scene in 2014 with 6 interceptions, picking off Dak Prescott a couple of times in Mississippi State. And he's just a super fast guy, not big hands, only 5'8", but he can burn on down the field. And you gotta love a guy who, even when he may get burned on a good route or just a guy going straight to the end zone, he can make up that time when that ball's in the air. And this season alone, I think he led Auburn in passes defended with at least 14 or 15, and he was just lights out, prevented at least 3 or 4 touchdowns with those passes knocked down. So in the NFL, I don't think you have to necessarily be a tall defensive back, but you have to be a fast one, because they're going to put you on some straight burners.
Yeah, and they always do the vertical jump in as one of the drills. But to me, that would have to be something too, though. At his size, he probably needs to to have a good showing when it comes to that.
Certainly.
What do you think?
Oh yeah, being the shortest guy and having the second smallest hands, that's going to be huge.
And another player from Auburn, well, going back to him, what do you think? Is he going to be a second or third round pick, you think?
Jonathan Jones, I don't know. I think because of his measurables, people will still kind of back off. They're not going to give him that second, third round money. I would look for him more in the fifth round.
Yeah, okay. Well, one player that is going to be teetering on whether he's first or second is Sean Coleman, the offensive lineman.
Yes.
And this cat, he's a good one.
He is a massive individual. Spent 6 years at Auburn, 2 of them recovering from leukemia that he was diagnosed with as a senior coming out of high school. Auburn stuck with him, and he's been criticized for his pass blocking. Basically, he was lit up a couple of years ago by Myles Garrett of Texas A&M, but really this year, about mid-season, really turned the corner and did not allow many sacks at all. A lot of things that were coming against him were holding penalties. He knocked that off, had a very good showing the last little bit of the season. And some people thought that he may not even leave, but he's just a great, big old dude. Got big hands, very athletic, moves his feet well. So I would say second round. Unfortunately, he was not able to do a lot of things at the combine because he got a bit of an injury. So he wasn't able to do much of anything past the bench press. But this is kind of a guy that you really have to look at as an investment over a couple of years, because he's not going to be able to come in straight away and play just like Greg Robinson of Auburn was able to a couple of years ago.
And one player I know Auburn hated to see go was the running back Peyton Barber.
Yeah.
Talk about him and what his chances are going into the NFL.
He was the story of the combine the first day of it, just with the interviews, because he basically told everybody, I came out for the draft, and he didn't have to. He was a red shirt, I believe, junior or sophomore for Auburn, and came out immediately after the 1,000-yard season, in part because his mother was homeless. I mean, that's something that a lot of us don't have to deal with. These guys have to deal with, possibly, supporting their parents in almost a reversal role of their childhood, and they're not even 22 years of age. So to have to come out, it really shows the character of this kid. He did lose playing time and snaps to Javon Robinson, so really this was the best overall choice for him. He wasn't going to get as many yards, especially not 1,000 yards that he was able to this season. So I'm glad that he came out now, and hopefully he can work his way into something. But right now they're looking at him at best case scenario, 7th round, undrafted guy. But another guy who really showed up well for the guys was Ricardo Lewis. Ricardo Lewis went, I think, a 4.4 40. So he can make himself some money, maybe in the second or third round for Auburn as well.
We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Sports Weekly right after this.
Moe's Original Barbecue, where you'll find award-winning Bama-style pulled pork, racks of ribs, and chicken smoked fresh daily over hardwood, served with 2 unique sauces, plus 8 to 10 traditional sides and tasty desserts. Moe's opens daily at 11 a.m., serving lunch and dinner until it's all gone. There's also a full premium bar with plenty of TVs for sports viewing and live music. Moe's Original Barbecue offers large party takeout orders, catering, and delivery. Moe's Barbecue, a unique all things Southern barbecue experience.
The 2016 Fiat 500X has arrived, and it's ready to drive at Fiat of Huntsville. This perfectly bold crossover is impressively equipped with a turbocharged engine, seating for 5, available all-wheel drive, and just $249 a month or $4,000 off. Plus, you get customizable amenities like 5 different trim levels to perfectly match your style. Come experience the all-new Fiat 500X at Fiat of Huntsville or online at fiatusaofhuntsville.com, a Frank Williams dealership.
My grandfather became a jeweler in 1944. My father opened Ed White Jewelers in 1961, and now I'm a third-generation jeweler. Offering a wide variety of engagement rings and a large selection of loose diamonds, plus anniversary and baby gifts have kept our customers coming back for generations. So shop where your grandmother shopped. She loved our quality, and you will too. Shop Ed White Jewelers for the good stuff.
Welcome back to Sports Weekly. We're here at Moe's Original Barbecue right here in Coleman, Alabama. I'm Randy Higgins along with Seth Hagen filling in this week. And we've been talking about the NFL Combine. We were talking about some of the Auburn guys before we went to the break. And you were talking about Ricardo Lewis and some of the others. Duke Williams was something that kind of jumped out at me.
Yeah.
And you grimaced. Duke Williams, I think, was clocked at a 4.7. That's not too good. He's got a lot of work to do if he even hopes to make it in this draft, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the one thing that was, I guess you could say, positive is that Duke Williams fully admitted on the very first day of the draft that he screwed up this season, that his behavior was almost single-handedly responsible for the downfall of the Auburn team. The distraction that he had all year with his behavior, from the off-season tweets to the mid-season incident with punching his own teammate in the bar, breaking his jaw. I mean, affecting Auburn's depth chart in that way. I mean, it was complete and utter disaster. And after he had a season that had made Mel Kiper name him as the #1 wide receiver in the draft board, and now you've gone from first-round money to possibly 7th round, possibly undrafted money, and your numbers have only backed that up. A wide receiver with a 4.7, you better be able to run one heck of a route and catch one heck of a ball, because and fortunately, Duke Williams was very good at that. He was never the fastest guy. He just made these incredible catches, and that's what you have to look at with Duke Williams. So he could, in fact, be a steal, because I still don't, I mean, that 4.7, it could be, I don't know, it could be, I don't know, you could be looking at the wrong thing, because in the last couple of months, I mean, the guy he hit rock bottom. So you got to think his conditioning took a hit. He was dropping balls during Auburn. He was not fast. He was not getting open. And as a result, the entire offense struggled. I mean, there was no vertical threat. Ricardo Lewis led the team with only 750 yards on the season. I mean, that's minuscule when you consider some of these massive seasons that other receivers have. I mean, the freshman Calvin Ridley for Alabama had a better season than any Auburn receiver. So
he had one of the better seasons in the SEC.
In the country, you know, the guy is incredible. So Duke's going to have to really impress with catching drills and route running and be able to pick up a playbook. I still have confidence in him. I still have a soft spot for him, but boy, it was just very tough. But I was happy that he manned up and he took responsibility for it in the end.
Well, you wonder how much can you really look into these 40 times when it comes to the combine, because so many guys, once they put on the pads and everything, they put on the helmet, some of these guys, yeah, they may have clocked at a 4.7, but they play faster once they get out there on the field.
And another thing was Duke was very physical. He was a very good run blocker on the edge for Auburn. He's a big dude, so he can contribute in other ways. Your 40 doesn't automatically tell everybody everything. If a 40 was, you know, the greatest indicator ever, then Chris Johnson should have been the best running back in NFL history. Well, he wasn't. So he had a few really good seasons, had a career resurgence in Arizona this fall, but at the end of the day, he wasn't the greatest. So and a lot of these guys really slow down once they're in pads as well. You got to think about it.
Well, that's true too, yeah. And I may date myself a little bit, but one of my favorite receivers back in the day was a guy who really wasn't fast either, but he's a Hall of Fame receiver, and that's Steve Largent that played for the Seattle Seahawks. And so, you know, I just don't, I guess when we talk about the combine, you said you wanted to talk a little bit about the combine tonight. I'm not a big combine guy just because I know some of these guys, once you get them out there on the field,
it don't matter. They
show so many different things. I mean, and another guy, Tom Brady, who was not impressive, you know, coming out of college. He was, what, a 7th rounder, I guess?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Reggie Ragland.
The guy's a shoe-in.
Reggie Ragland ran a 4.7 this year at the Combine. You already know he's a ball hawk, and he's in the same vein as the C.J. Mosleys and the Rolando McClains of the world. I mean, these guys are trained to heat seek that ball, basically. And so at the end of the day, measurable speed, that can give you a nice little lead into what a guy can do, but you won't really find out until you're in OTAs in June.
Well, you talked about Reggie Ragland from Alabama, a couple of guys that we're pretty sure are going to go in the first round from Alabama. Jaron Reed, one defensive tackle, and the other, Ashawn Robinson,
Monsters.
who's a beast.
Absolute monsters.
You know,
and to me, the best defensive lineman, Jonathan Allen, he stuck around at Alabama. He was predicted to go in the top 15 and stuck around. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a loss for somebody and a gain for somebody next year, because that kid, he's a top 5 talent to me.
Yeah, a lot of talent Alabama loses. And of course, as everyone knows, they just reload.
Yes, another number one class in, I think, 2 or 3 recruiting sites.
But you lose 2 really good players in the backfield, Kenyon Drake,
Yep.
and your Derrick Henry, the Heisman Trophy. I mean, do they have somebody? Do they have players that can really step in and be have that much of an impact as those guys?
Well, they do. They do have guys that are as highly ranked as those guys were. Of course, that doesn't always mean a whole lot. I mean, Alabama has had 4- and 5-star quarterbacks in their stable for the last few years, and you see what happened. They've ended up starting Phillip Sims and Jake Coker, but it didn't really matter because Lane Kiffin has really shown to be able to cater to any one of his quarterback's strengths and to tailor the game that way. But this year will be the first time that he will have to replace his starting running back and his starting quarterback.
But in years past, we've always seen where you always knew exactly who that guy was in waiting. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like with Derrick Henry, we saw him.
We knew he was coming.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So with Ingram, there was always somebody right behind these guys. With Richardson, you could see who was next in line.
Because you saw them during the season, and this year, yeah, you're right, because you didn't see Damian Harris, you didn't see Bo Scarborough throughout the season, and that does make you a little uneasy. But I mean, we'll find out in a couple weeks. Alabama's spring practice starts on March 11th, and you'll find out then. But they certainly have the horses in the stable to make things happen. And of course, Alabama always has a great offensive line with Cristobal. He's insane.
Out of these guys in the draft for Alabama, who do you see that can have an immediate impact for an NFL team that's coming out of this draft for Alabama?
I would have to go right now, right off the top, with Reggie Ragland. The guy is an absolute beast. Really led that offense. As good as that defensive line was, he quarterbacked that thing. So you really have to look at him like you look at C.J. Mosley, like you look at Rolando McClain, because this guy could be the captain of your defense for a decade straight, and you don't want to miss out on a guy like that. He's a first-round talent. At the end of the day, Ashawn Robinson may end up being just a little more disruptive than he does, but I think Reggie Ragland, for the length of his career, is the better bet to me.
And what about Derrick Henry? He's not going to be. Well, he definitely has speed, but how do you think he would stack up in the NFL versus, say, an Eddie Lacy, an Ingram? Obviously, I think we don't even have to mention Richardson when it comes to the NFL.
Even though he will get a 4th shot.
Is he going to get a 4th shot?
Yeah.
Okay.
He signed with somebody. I can't remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He signed with.
It's not arena ball or anything?
I'm telling you, he got another shot. I couldn't believe it, but he's going to play.
How do you think he's going to end up? And I know it would all be speculative, but how do you think he could stack up versus, say, Lacy or Ingram?
He could. I mean, this guy with his potential, he could be better than all of them. But I could still see a scenario where he would be worse than all of them, because here's the thing: Derrick Henry, for all his strength and might and speed, once he gets going downhill, is a very iffy running back when he's caught behind the line. His lateral quickness, not his vertical, but his side-to-side lateral quickness is not very good. When you get him kind of stifled behind the line, there's some running backs that can get stopped at the line and then bounce it outside real quick. That's not Derrick Henry's running game. He finds the hole and he busts through it. If your offensive line cannot make holes for Henry, then you do not need to sign this running back. If he gets signed to, say, the Dallas Cowboys, watch out, because that's an offensive line that can open holes for just about anybody. They almost single-handedly resurrected old running back from Arkansas. What's his name? I can't even remember his name, but he did very well. McFadden.
Yeah, McFadden
did very well this year behind that offensive line after DeMarco Murray went for almost 2,000 yards. So I would say that he's good and he's got great talent. We all know he's a workout beast, and people really in the third or fourth quarter, you saw defenders melt off Derrick Henry this past year. So I don't think he's a first-round pick. You don't need to make him a franchise player, but if you put him with a team that's ready for him, he could be a monster next year.
Yeah, it's all going to be about the team. That's got a lot to do with it, where you end up. And of course, Ingram. I felt like he didn't end up in the right system for him, but that offense for the Saints, they're starting to kind of. It is favoring him a little bit more now. They are getting him the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, as Drew Brees declines.
Yeah. But the thing about that strikes me about Henry is you're talking about a guy that I think he only caught like maybe 13 passes.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that catches the ball a lot out of the backfield.
And that disappoints me because he was always very good at Alabama, and not at catching balls on routes necessarily, but when you sucked the defense in and threw the ball over the top, he was very effective in that area. So that disappoints me, but to me, I mean, he's definitely at this point the best running back that Saban's put out.
Really?
In the NFL, to me, yeah.
Wow.
Over the years, he's been very consistent. You've thrown different quarterback or running backs in there, and he's really come out on top every year. It's just injuries, and I mean, he doesn't have the best ability, but Mark Ingram to me is still the best running back that Saban's put out.
Wow, that's saying a lot. I mean, with what Eddie Lacy's shown that he can do in the NFL.
Yeah. But Eddie's got to lose that weight. If Eddie don't lose that weight, he's not going to last as long as Ingram in this league.
And I think that's what held him back a little bit this year.
Oh, for sure.
Was that. Because he was kind of on a roller coaster as far as having a good game. Then he'd have a game where he struggled. But I feel like he has the potential to have a huge career. Eddie Lacy does.
Oh, he does. But he got to get his mind right.
So you're saying, though, you think Richardson could have an even bigger one?
Richardson, if he got his mind right, not right now, but Ingram, to me, right now, is the best just for his overall career. Lacy has a bigger upside, but if he doesn't get his weight correct, then he's going nowhere fast.
Well, we're about to take another break here. We hope you've enjoyed Sports Weekly this week. I'm Randy Higgins and Seth Hagen. We're filling in this week. We're live here at Moe's Original Barbecue in Coleman, and we've got more of Sports Weekly when we come back.
Moe's Original Barbecue, where you'll find award-winning Bama-style pulled pork, racks of ribs, and chicken smoked fresh daily over hardwood, served with 2 unique sauces, plus 8 to 10 traditional sides and tasty desserts. Moe's opens daily at 11 a.m., serving lunch and dinner until it's all gone. There's also a full premium bar with plenty of TVs for sports viewing and live music. Moe's Original Barbecue offers large party takeout orders, catering, and delivery. Moe's Barbecue, a unique all things Southern barbecue experience.
The 2016 Fiat 500X has arrived, and it's ready to drive at Fiat of Huntsville. This perfectly bold crossover is impressively equipped with a turbocharged engine, seating for 5, available all-wheel drive, and just $249 a month or $4,000 off. Plus, you get customizable amenities like 5 different trim levels to perfectly match your style. Come experience the all-new Fiat 500X at Fiat of Huntsville or online at fiatusaofhuntsville.com, a Frank Williams dealership.
At College Tire Company, your valuable wheels are safe because our new touchless tire changer protects your wheels during tire removal and installation. The machine never touches the wheel, and the new Force Balancer Match balances your wheel and tire for a vibration-free ride. Buy virtually new name brand tires and you'll get free rotation for the life of the tire at College Tire Company. With 2 locations to serve you better. In Huntsville, call 489-7110. In Hansville, call 352-2221.
At Premier Bank, you have a financial partner you can depend on. Hi, I'm Jay Mullins, president of Premier Bank, with some exciting news about our financial strength and performance. For the 6th consecutive year, our bank has been rated 5 stars by Bauer Financial, an independent firm that has been analyzing and reporting on the financial condition of the nation's banking industry since 1983. This prestigious rating means that we are one of the strongest banks in the nation, and a safe and sound bank you can depend on.
To Sports Weekly, I'm Randy Higgins along with Seth Hagen, doing a little fill-in work this week. And we're at Moe's Original Barbecue in Coleman, and we've been talking about a little bit of basketball and the NFL Combine. And the other thing that's coming up now, Seth, is spring training football. And you had mentioned that to me earlier today, and I'm not real big on spring football, but you apparently are. I had no idea. There's already teams that have started already, and we're at the 1st of March.
It really is insane, and football truly is a year-round sport, Randy. Like, we just got done with the Super Bowl, it seems. You just now hear reports about Peyton Manning retiring, and then almost instantly, as if by some black magic down in Louisiana, we've got football once again, and like you said, teams already playing football. Right now, Michigan has just started its spring football practice. Clemson has started its spring football practice. Stanford got started just a few days ago. Vanderbilt is the first team in the SEC to start in February, and I can't wait. Already we've got some more football, some more talking points to talk about, and then the spring games where some people find out who their quarterback guy is, and Alabama and Auburn are both looking for guys to fill that spot.
Yeah, and Auburn takes the practice field tomorrow on Tuesday.
Yes, they do. Yep, March 1st.
And there's some question marks there. Talk a little bit about that.
Certainly, yeah. Right now at Auburn, you're looking at a full stable at running back. Guys all across the board, guys in wide receiver positions. You just had your best wide receiver recruiting class possibly ever before Damian Craig hightailed it to LSU. So you've got skill position guys there. You really have to just look at the quarterback position and also who's protecting him on the edges. Both Auburn's right tackle Avery Young and Sean Coleman, who we mentioned earlier, are going to the draft. So you're going to have to fill those spots. But really that's secondary as far as who your quarterback is, because we've already seen in Gus Malzahn's offense, the quarterback is so very important to the team's consistency throughout, because they never really found that in 2015. 2016, you got a guy named John Franklin III, who was actually the guy who helped Florida State, who he committed to in the first place his freshman year. He mimicked Nick Marshall in the national championship practices back in 2013. So this kid got a lot of speed. He can launch the ball. I've watched his tape. He's a really quick guy, maybe even quicker than Nick Marshall. So people need to get ready for this guy. If he can sling the pill around as well, Auburn's offense could be right back where it was in 2013.
And so you think that he's the front runner then, is what
certainly, because you couldn't ever find any consistency with Jeremy Johnson or Sean White. It seemed like they would play well in spots, and then inevitably they would throw an interception here or something, or a fumble there, and it destroyed the first half of the season. Jeremy Johnson was benched after being a preseason Heisman contender. I've never seen a guy go from preseason Heisman to the doghouse so quickly in my entire life. It just so happened to happen right in front of us, right here in Alabama, and across the state. Jake Coker was fulfilling promise, right, and making things work under Lane Kiffin. So really kind of threw Gus's credibility into question. And so this year, the pressure is on. If his quarterback does not perform this fall, and they have another 7-8 win season, I'm not sure that that's going to be enough for Jay Jacobs.
So Sean White, to me, didn't really fit a Gus Malzahn type offense.
Certainly.
I felt like I thought he was good. He's a good football player, no doubt about it.
Great passer.
Great
throwing
passer.
lasers.
It just didn't seem like the right fit for that offense.
Oh yeah, you have to in that kind of offense. You really have to command the zone read or the zone option. If you don't have the speed to get to that edge when the defensive ends crash on that running back, it's not gonna work. It's just not going to. And for all of Sean's prowess at throwing the ball, that's really more for a pro-style offense. And I'm not saying the guy's slow or anything like that, but Auburn's offensive line was just not good enough to protect him. And maybe it will be this year, but when you're replacing also your both tackles on either side, I just don't see how he's going to be able to rise to the top in that offense.
That makes it tough. And, and then you've got to find somebody for this quarterback to throw it to, because you've lost some receivers.
Yes. You lost your top receiver in Ricardo Lewis. You lost your second leading receiver in Melvin. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to find some playmakers. You got some guys, and Auburn has some guys, but it's really going to have to cut the receiving game is going to have to be opened up by the running game. And if you got John Franklin being effective, you got Javon Robinson, who I believe will have 1,500 yards this season. Everything can come off that, and we saw that in 2013 when your running game is going and your fullbacks are blocking and you got good tight ends. That's another thing that Auburn didn't have a whole lot of experience with last year. They had a redshirt freshman at starting tight end. He got replaced by a freshman at tight end midway through the season, and then you had a freshman and a redshirt freshman and a halfback. So really, when you're trying to get a good running game going, you can't have inexperience at those positions. You saw what Jay Prosch was able to do in 2013. He was a wrecking ball and opening holes everywhere for Trey Mason. The same thing can happen, but in those little roles that you don't get to see as much with fullback and tight end, those are so important, really, so to the intricacy of Gus Malzahn's offense.
And what kind of can Kevin Steele make an immediate impact like we thought that we were going to get
with Will Muschamp? Well, he
Muschamp?
certainly has a better chance because he is not being left with basically a bare cupboard that Will Muschamp was left with. Muschamp immediately brought in great cornerbacks with the 2015 recruiting class, and they continued that this year. Picked up a lot of great defensive line talent. Derek Brown being that number 1 guy, number 8 ranked recruit in the entire country. That was a massive pickup and easily the crown jewel of Auburn's entire defense. So he certainly has a better position that he's starting with. And you have to say, even though Auburn didn't play very well throughout the first half of the season, and of course Muschamp had that ugly meltdown in the Iron Bowl that we all remember. You have to admit, once Carl Lawson got back on that defensive line, Auburn was not letting people score. Held Alabama to 29 after 55 last year. Held Georgia to just 20 after 30-plus last year. They let 7 straight teams score 30-plus on them. They did not let a single opponent from the SEC score 30 except for Arkansas, and that was in the game where they had 4 overtimes. So it's certainly a better place than Muschamp was there. And if Muschamp wasn't at South Carolina right now, I'd say they'd be a problem. But Coach Steele is still very good. Still very good.
And of course, Coach Steele was at one time Alabama defensive coordinator. And let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about Alabama coming into spring practice. They've got a question at quarterback as well.
They do. Right now, it's really just between a couple of guys. I think Cooper Bateman really is at the top of that list, and everybody else kind of falls under that. They've still got some very talented guys, like I said. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's even nearly as big a deal for Alabama as it is for Auburn. When you look at Alabama, they're really able to win with anybody at quarterback. Rick McElroy, A.J. McCarron, and now Jake Coker have all won titles with a great defense is basically telling them, look, if you can score maybe 20, 25 for us, we got you.
Right.
And now with Jonathan Allen coming back to that defense and captaining that team, I mean, they could be in the exact same position. And you've got Calvin Ridley coming back off that stellar freshman season. You got Robert Foster, who's the #2 receiver, coming out of the 2014 recruiting class. He was injured midway through the season. He'll be back. So whoever that quarterback has, he'll have a wealth of talent to throw to. Of course, O.J. Howard is also coming back, that monster tight end who basically beat Clemson single-handedly.
Yeah, everybody was like, wow.
Who's this guy?
Yeah, who's this guy?
Who's this guy running wide open behind the entire Clemson defense? Yeah.
He's a beast. He's something else.
Oh, man, he's a monster. And everybody was really waiting for him to break out. He was a junior.
He did.
And people have been waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen. And leave it to Lane Kiffin to just use the one guy that everybody had written off and make him the title game MVP.
And should I mention Lane?
The guy is insane.
Should I mention Lane Kiffin?
He's going to stick around. That and Jonathan Allen coming back, that was bigger than any recruiting pickup that Alabama made. You retain the offensive genius that Lane Kiffin is, who has come in 2 years straight and just came into Nick Saban's box of toys, basically, and, I'm going to use this guy, this little shiny one over here, and I'm just going to unleash, heck on everybody. I mean, what a situation to come into. Yeah. To be a guru and then to get to play with all these little toys. It's like Malzahn coming in and getting to play with Cam Newton right off the bat. Yeah. I mean, how incredible is that?
Well, maybe we won't go into it. Lane Kiffin, his wife, the divorce. No, we won't go there.
Oh,
never mind.
Poor guy.
But I tell you, we've just got a couple of minutes left. I do want to mention the Alabama High School Athletic Association.
Absolutely.
State basketball championships coming to the BJCC on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. A bunch of games will be there, and looking forward to that. Thursday, you'll have the 1A girls and the 1A boys playing in the championships. Friday, it'll be the 2A and 3A and 4A girls and boys in the championships. And then on Saturday, you'll have the 5, 6A, and 7A championships, both boys and girls at the BJCC coming up this Saturday.
It's going to be a great atmosphere. I got to do my first tournament last year. It was just so much fun. And the 1A, right now, everything is not totally decided, but 1A, we already do know who the title game contenders will be. You'll have Georgiana going against Sacred Heart Catholic in the 1A area, and that's going to be a good matchup right there. Moving to the 2A side, it gets even crazier. You got St. Luke's Episcopal. They're going to be playing against Lynette and Section in the 2A. But obviously we want to look at 7A real quick because that's the biggest one. And those semifinals have not been decided yet. You're looking at Spain Park, Central Phoenix, and Hoover, McGill, Tulane. So whoever it is, it's going to be a blast.
And that's this weekend at the BJCC. And if you haven't been out to watch that, it's some great high school basketball. We'll be there working and doing our thing. And
can't wait.
No, can't wait. Well, we've had a good time here tonight. Again, I'm Randy Higgins. This is Seth Hagen, and we're glad you've joined us here on Sports Weekly. And we hope maybe we get to do this again, Seth.
All right. Me too.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Later.